So now we're in exercise 8-3. Now in 8-3, we're going to do more overloading. Now, let's assume I don't know what's being input. I'm reading in some input and I don't know the form that it's in. We're going to use that try parse again. And we're going to do that try parse to check to see, is this an integer? Is this a double? Or is it a string? As we receive it in, we're going to receive it in as a string. And since it's defaulting to a string as we're reading that line, we will then take, much like we did in the last exercise, we'll try to take the bid that we receive, pass it to an int.tryParse method. And if, in fact, we can convert that bid to an integer, we will take that and store that value in int bid. And if that is, in fact, the case, we'll call the accept bid method. If that's not the case and we couldn't convert it into an integer, let's try to convert it to a double. Let's see if we can do a double.tryParse and convert it to a double. We pass bid to that try parse, and if it can convert it to a double, we'll store that value in double bid. And if I can't convert it to an int or a double, what's that mean? It's a string. It's not a valid number that I can actually do something with, so I'll just go ahead and leave it as a string and pass it to accept bid as just that, a string. Now, if that's the case, I'm going to have 3 different versions of accept bid. Accept bid is going to have to be able to accept an integer, a double, and a string. So we'll go ahead and write those, and that's what we have here. Accept bid is written in line 9 to accept bid as an integer, and 12 bid as a double, and 15 bid as a string. So it's the same method, I'm just accommodating the different forms of the data that's being passed to it. Let's go ahead and we're going to populate our main and then we'll go from there. So in our main, let's start out with a string called bid, and that's where we're going to store what we receive in. We're going to have int bid is where we store the bid converted to an integer. Double bid is where we store it converted to a double. We've got a constant, which is the min of 10. Go ahead and enter your bid. We do the read line, and that comes in as a string to bid. We've already declared that. Here's what I was talking about previously. If int.tryParse, we pass bid to it, bid's a string. It tries it. If in fact it could do it, it will then convert it to an integer and we'll store that in int bid. Now, it will return true if it was able to convert, and that will allow us to call the accept bid and pass int bid, which is an integer, to that method along with the min, which was 10. And it does that accept bid. Now, if it could not convert it to an integer, we'll come down, we'll try the same thing as a double. If we can't convert it to a double and this ends up being false, we come down and we stick with the string. Okay? So that logic should be straightforward, and we are just beating up this concept of passing by reference using out. Got a lot of power to it, like I keep saying. So let's build our methods, and they're all going to be functionally the same method. Okay? So let's take the first one, and our first method, accept bid as an integer, if bid is greater than or equal to min, which was 10, bid accepted. Else, bid's not high enough. That's it. We're not jumping through big hoops here. Now, let's go to double. So, if it's a double, we're going to treat it the same way. And it's pretty much the same code that we had above in the int version of accept bid. Now, if it's a string, now this gets kind of convoluted. If it's a string, we've got to go through and look at character by character what's going on in that string. So I'll go ahead and I'll add the code in for that. And here we go. If it's a string, bid comes in. I'm going to have some variables that I declare if bid.substring. So if there's a $sign in there, we're checking to see if it's in there. Then I'm going to go through and say, hey, your bid wasn't in the right format. Because if they put a $sign in at the beginning, I can't convert that to a double. And we go through and do the different tests on it to see how long is this thing, what's there. Okay. And we're just, in essence, letting them know, hey, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it right. Okay. So we could try to strip something away and pass it out having stripped away that first character. So we'll go from there. Let's check and see what we've got. Add to your bid. $5.0. Okay. I have a problem with what I did. Can't be less than 0. Let me go ahead and run it again, see if it'll work with a good number. Bid accepted. So if I have a combination of numbers and letters, it choked on me. Go ahead and run it again. Dollar. So it stripped away my $sign and went. If it was a string, I still have some issues in here. Let's see what it thinks. As far as when I say have some issues in there, I got some issues in there in that I'm not covering every option when it comes to bad data. So let's run checks and see if we can get through it coding wise, see if it likes what we did. We got through 2, we got through all 3. So when I say we've still got issues, the issues are that we're checking for certain things in here, and I should have had this right line should have popped in, but it didn't. Let me check my spacing and see how I am on my spacing. I'll try it again. See if it's an indentation issue on what I had. Yeah, the combination of numbers and letters, I don't have validation sufficient enough to deal with that. So I would have to have more try parse in here, or I should have try catch on it to catch this bad data, catch these errors. I've got unhandled exception. Try catch will deal with that. And we're going to deal with those try catches later. But at this point, it's just parsing. And we're doing the try parse. Okay? So all I'm saying is we got through. If it's an int, we can handle it. If it's a double, we can handle it. If it's a string, only because the first character is a $sign, Okay? So beyond that, if there's any characters in there that can't be converted, we'll have an unhandled exception. And we'll have to catch that. We'll catch that in future exercises. All right? So I'll see you in the next one, 8-4.